ever seen the Unilever commercials? I mean, everybody is putting out stuff to try to say, we care about the Black community, we care about this issue.
Right.
That would be, I have no doubt that people like Caterpillar that, aren't always viewed great in this area, right? That the public service announcements coming from somebody, like yourself. Like, I know that when we launched a program called the Black Entrepreneur Initiative, where we have the platform that you have access to, and for the Black community, we specifically looked for a voice like yours, right? We were looking for a voice that even if you weren't watching the video, you knew it was a Black man. We used a Black man, Black woman to do it. So that's the kind of thing that on a public service announcement, right?
It could lend credibility to a certain
100%,
area.
100%. So I know you've got a bunch of other interests, but to me, when you can marry your interests with your desire to do good, and also the fact that this stuff is literally, in the boardrooms, of these major companies, I think that seems to me to be fruitful ground.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can take advantage of it, and again, make it meaningful and useful. We've realized, even with the issue with the pandemic and the uncertainty with regard to the shots, whether or not people should take the shots, and the trusting, and once I became educated on it, I was able to advocate for it. So even small little ways like that, again, just having something that sounds familiar, and something that potentially lends credibility, I think might be helpful.
Barry, that's a great idea, because if you think about the challenges that are faced with the Black community around the trust in the healthcare system around things like this, I don't think there's any question that, you may not be able to go to CVS corporate, but could you go to CVS local, or could you go to the health department local? Sure.
Yeah. I was just, when you started talking, that was
idea.
The first thing in my mind is the health department, because I know they've actually reached out asking for people to volunteer, but this might be another area in which I can volunteer. So
absolutely,
or at least be useful. So
yeah, and like you said, when people are just listening to something and they're catching snippets of a radio ad or a public service announcement or something like that, I mean, a voice like yours that comes through that, like you said, you feel comfortable advocating for it. So now it's something that you're comfortable with. I think that's another great idea. It's going to marry, like, you're marrying that core skill with where people have that great need, right? And seeing where those two kind of circles, interact.
Right. Yeah. And everything I want to do, I'm trying to make sure that it again, that I have a passion about it, but also that, it provides some type of a value to whomever, is going to need it or use it. So,
well, listen, I think the two issues that you would be weighing in on, now, granted, they might have you do an employee manual, and that's one thing, but I think if you ever had the ability to, talk about the vaccine, you hear the statistics about how much of the Black community is not going to get the vaccine. And obviously that's meaningful. And certainly the messages that large companies are putting out right now, if they are not 100% genuine, right? They just fall flat. And while this is always only one component of it, I would think it would be very compelling. It doesn't have to be the largest company in the world either, right? You can, any company of any size that's had to take a stance on this.
And there are a few around. State Farm is half an hour away from here. So Country Companies and a few other companies. So
great one, because they're a particularly good one, because they are also talking to entrepreneurs as potential customers. So all of their independent agents throughout the country are trying to engage with Black men and women, not just to help them and support them, but because they want to sell to them.
Right. Yeah.
So, and they're a regulated entity. I mean, the State Farm's a great one.
Right. Yeah. That was one of the reasons I thought about even doing it for the federal government or contractors that do work with the federal government, because I know they're required to have a certain amount of minority participation. So to the extent that I could fit into some of those are also.
Those are just, you have to have a relationship with somebody, right? So you'd want to know, somebody that already has a contract with the federal government that you have an in with, that you could just slide under their umbrella. and
Okay.
you wouldn't have to go through, and it would give them the ability to, like if they would subcontract with you, you wouldn't have to go through the whole procurement with the federal government. You would just plug into
Okay.
them if you had a relationship with somebody.
Okay. Yeah, and that sounds much better, because I know when it does come to financing, the federal government can be a bit slow. So
A little bit. Totally.
so,
This is great, man. Listen, I love the ideas, and I love the fact that you're trying to line it with stuff that's important to you. And I hope some of these ideas are at least a little bit helpful.
yeah, very much so. The targeting, because again, that was kind of in line with what I had been thinking. So that gives me confirmation
Yep.
that I can go